Hello there, and welcome to the calm space of LUMIVERSE NL, a quiet corner of the universe where science becomes serenity. Maybe it's been a long day, or maybe you're the kind of soul who likes to drift into sleep while listening to something gentle, slow, and full of wonder. Tonight we begin a calm exploration, not among stars or galaxies, but much closer to home, in the secret life of plants. You may have heard that plants grow, that they sense light and turn toward the sun. But could they do more than that? Could they think? It sounds impossible at first. After all, plants have no brains, no nerves, no muscles. They cannot move freely or chase prey. They seem bound to stillness, silent, patient, passive. And yet, through that stillness, they have conquered almost every landscape on Earth. Deserts, mountains, forests, ocean sides. Without speed, they endure. Without sound, they communicate. Without eyes, they find light. Perhaps the real question is not whether plants can think, but whether we've ever truly learned to listen to them. Because to study a plant is to enter a world that moves in another rhythm. One measured not in seconds, but in seasons. A rhythm where decision and motion blur into the same slow act of being alive. When we talk about intelligence, we often imagine movement. A fox adjusting its hunt to the wind, a dolphin solving a puzzle, a person solving a problem under pressure. But what if intelligence could also live in stillness? What if awareness does not always need speed, or even thought as we know it? Plants, from the moment they sprout, remain rooted to one spot. They cannot run from danger or seek shelter. Yet, through a quiet and ancient genius, they've learned to survive drought, predators, and shadow. They've developed complex networks beneath the soil, root systems that exchange signals and share resources. They sense light, moisture, gravity, and chemistry, not separately, but all at once. Each reaction, each movement of a leaf or tendril is part of a slow dialogue between the plant and its world. A dialogue that unfolds so gradually that we rarely notice it happening. Scientists once believed these reactions were mere reflexes, automatic, without thought. But recent discoveries suggest something more profound. Plants don't just respond, they choose. They weigh, adapt, and remember. This isn't metaphor, it's biology. And it invites us to expand our understanding of what it means to be aware. Maybe awareness isn't exclusive to creatures that walk and breathe. Maybe it also belongs to the roots that reach quietly through darkness, finding their way one grain of soil at a time. So, as you listen tonight, let the noise of the day fade away. Breathe softly, and imagine yourself shrinking down to the scale of a leaf, where sunlight becomes a language, and every drop of water carries a message from the earth itself. Because to understand the life of plants is to glimpse a different kind of intelligence, one that grows, waits, and endures. If these journeys help you rest, to unwind, or simply to find calm at the edge of sleep, consider leaving a gentle like or subscribing to LUMIVERSE NL. It helps others discover this space, one curious dreamer at a time. And if you'd like, tell us in the comments where you're listening from. The planet is vast, yet somehow, here in this moment, we are connected. Through sound, through curiosity, through quiet science. Now let's begin our descent into the hidden world of green awareness, where stillness becomes thought, and time itself learns to breathe. When we look at a forest, we often see stillness. Trunks unmoving, leaves whispering only when the wind decides to pass. But if we could slow time enough, if we could see days unfold like seconds, the forest would come alive. Branches would stretch toward shifting sunlight. Roots would twist and reach like searching fingers. Petals would open and close as the hours drift by. The entire landscape would breathe, not in lungs, but in rhythm. Plants live in a world of slow motion, where animals act in moments. plants act in memories. Their intelligence is measured not by speed, but by endurance, the way they sense patterns across time, storing them in chemistry instead of thought. For them, patience is power. A leaf that adjusts to light across a day is performing a calculation. A root that turns toward water is solving a problem. Every movement, however quiet, is a response to countless signals, weighed and balanced like decisions. Scientists once assumed that plants react mechanically, without awareness. Yet, modern studies reveal something astonishing. Many plant responses are conditional. They depend not only on what is happening, but on what has happened, and even on what is likely to happen next. This ability to relate the present to the past, to shape the future from patterns of experience, is the essence of intelligence. Inside every leaf and stem lies a network of cells that act much like sensors and processors combined. When light hits a leaf, it doesn't simply trigger a chemical chain. It sends signals across tissues, activating or suppressing genes, changing how the entire organism behaves. Roots, too, share this sensitivity. They detect gradients of moisture, acidity, and nutrients, mapping their environment as if navigating an invisible landscape beneath the soil. And though they move slowly, their communication is fast. Electrical pulses travel through the plant body, carried by ions rather than neurons. These signals can race from root to leaf in seconds, warning of danger or stress. When one part of a plant is damaged, others respond almost instantly, producing protective chemicals or altering growth patterns to minimize loss. It's a kind of reflex, but guided by coordination, a conversation among cells. This coordination, though lacking a brain, is remarkably organized. Each cell contributes to a greater purpose. Together, they form what scientists call distributed intelligence, a system where awareness is spread across the whole rather than contained in one place. The same principle shapes ant colonies, coral reefs, and even human cities. But in plants, this intelligence takes a gentler form. It is not built on motion, but on connection. To understand this quiet form of thinking, we must slow down to its pace. A leaf's decision to face the sun, a vine's choice of direction, a seed's timing to wake. None of these happen by chance. Each is guided by invisible data collected from the environment. Light intensity, humidity, soil vibration. Even the faint magnetic pull of Earth. What looks like stillness is, in truth, a storm of sensing and choice. Every morning, as sunlight changes angle, plants adjust their leaves to capture the most light without overheating. At noon, some close their stomata, tiny pores that breathe in carbon dioxide to conserve water. As evening falls, they reopen, preparing for night. Each shift is deliberate, precise, and remarkably efficient. It is as if the plant keeps a schedule, not written in words, but in biochemistry. When you think of thought, you might imagine a spark in the brain, neurons firing in patterns of awareness. But here, thought is replaced by flow. Information moves not through synapses, but through sap. Decisions unfold in hormones and gradients rather than logic or language. And yet, the outcome is the same. A living system adapting to its world, refining itself with every change. Perhaps this is what wisdom looks like in the natural world. Slow, rooted, patient, but endlessly responsive. Where we rush, plants remain. Where we chase, they wait. And in their waiting, they perceive more than we can see. As you listen, imagine that patience as a form of consciousness. Not human, not animal, but something older. A deep intelligence written into every cell that ever sought the sun. Because in every quiet adaptation, in every slow unfolding of a leaf, there lies a decision, a thought made in green. When we picture the word intelligence, we imagine motion. Animals learning, reacting, and deciding in real time. a hawk adjusting its wings to the wind, an octopus solving a puzzle, a wolf tracking scent through the snow. In every case, thought seems tied to movement, as if awareness must always reach outward. But plants have taught us a different story. They reveal that intelligence can exist in stillness, that awareness can root itself in silence. From the moment a seed touches soil, its fate is sealed to the earth. It cannot run from danger or follow the sun across the sky. And yet, that small seed carries within it a complete strategy for life. Inside, chemical circuits awaken. Cells that can sense gravity, moisture, light, and touch. Each decision that follows, which direction to grow, when to unfold, when to wait, is guided not by instinct alone, but by information. If you could watch a plant in time-lapse, you'd see a choreography of purpose. Roots curling and branching like thought itself, searching through darkness for water. Leaves tilting minutely toward light, tendrils spiraling outward, testing the air until they find a surface to hold. Every movement has reason. Every delay, a calculation. Plants do not think fast. They think deep. Modern research has shown that plants can process as many as 20 separate environmental cues at once. They measure light intensity, temperature, pH, mineral gradients, and the presence of neighbors. They respond to vibrations, to electrical fields, even to magnetic orientation. It's as if each plant carries a living algorithm, constantly solving for survival. In the laboratory, biologists have recorded faint electrical pulses traveling through stems and roots. These impulses, though slower than those in animals, form a network of communication. When one leaf is bitten by an insect, the entire plant responds, sending warning chemicals to nearby tissues, altering its chemistry within seconds. Neighboring plants, connected through air or soil, can detect these signals and prepare their own defenses. In that shared language, forests become communities, and stillness becomes conversation. But intelligence does not always require reaction. Sometimes it means knowing when not to act. A seed wading through winter knows that spring will come. A cactus holding water through months of drought has learned the rhythm of scarcity. A forest canopy adjusts its density across decades to balance light and life. Such behaviors are not reflexes. They are memory systems shaped by experience. Plants record the world not in neurons, but in chemistry. When drought strikes, they alter their genes to conserve moisture. When danger passes, they remember it, reacting faster the next time. Some even pass these memories to their offspring, encoding knowledge of hardship into DNA expression. In this way, thought becomes inheritance. Every decision a plant makes, when to open a flower, when to drop a leaf, when to reach deeper into the soil, is an act of timing. And timing, in biology, is everything. They move to a clock older than our species, guided by cycles of light and gravity, by the moon, by the turning of the earth itself. Their awareness may be slow, but it is exact. If we define thinking as the ability to sense, process, and adapt to information, then perhaps plants have been thinking all along. They just do so at a pace that demands our patience. A kind of slow intelligence, quiet but precise, unfolding leaf by leaf in the language of time. So, as you rest tonight, imagine yourself as a seed beneath the soil. You can feel warmth, moisture, and gravity pressing softly against your shell. You wait, not in ignorance, but in knowing. Because even in stillness, you are alive with purpose. Even without motion, you are listening to the earth. Every living thing gathers information from the world around it. Light, sound, touch, movement. But few do it as quietly as plants. Their senses are everywhere, woven through every cell. Where we have eyes and ears, they have membranes that feel, pigments that see, and roots that listen through the soil. A plant can detect gravity, moisture, and the faintest change in chemical gradients. It can sense the approach of neighbors, or the shadow of a passing cloud. It can recognize the difference between the brush of rain and the nibble of an insect. To call this instinct is to miss the depth of what's happening. These are layers of perception operating together, each one refining the next. Some researchers describe this as integrative sensing, a plant's ability to combine signals from multiple sources and decide which one to follow. Imagine standing at a crossroads, feeling heat on one side, light on another, and water beneath your feet. Every direction offers something different. Now imagine making a choice without a brain, only with chemistry and time. That is what a plant does every day. In its roots, specialized cells known as statocytes contain tiny grains that settle with gravity. They tell the plant which way is down. Nearby pressure-sensitive membranes detect moisture, and chemical receptors measure nutrient flow. Each of these inputs influences growth, bending roots toward what is needed and away from what is not. It's a slow form of reasoning, but it is reasoning nonetheless. Above ground, the leaves act as light detectors, not simply turning toward brightness, but distinguishing its color and angle. Blue light tells the plant where the sky lies. Red light hints at the presence of other plants. Even the ratio between the two can inform a leaf whether to stretch higher or grow broader. Some species alter their entire shape depending on this subtle difference, optimizing every inch for survival. The speed of these reactions is not measured in seconds, but in signals. Waves of hormones like auxin and cytokinin, moving cell by cell through tissues. When light hits one side of a stem, auxin shifts toward the darker side, causing those cells to elongate. The stem bends, slowly but deliberately, until the leaf meets the light. To us, it's imperceptible. To the plant, it's thought in motion. And beneath the soil, another kind of sensing unfolds. Roots grow not blindly, but with astonishing awareness. They avoid toxic metals, follow faint trails of phosphorus, and even detect vibrations from moving water. Some experiments show roots bending toward the sound of flowing pipes, as if listening for rivers underground. These are not reflexes. They are targeted responses, guided by the same logic that governs any organism seeking balance. Each signal the plant receives adds to a map, not drawn on paper, but encoded in chemistry. This internal map guides how it grows, where it reaches, and how it communicates with others. It is a kind of memory, continuously updated with every drop of water and every ray of light. Through it, the plant learns the pattern of its environment, transforming chaos into coherence. It is easy to overlook intelligence when it doesn't look like ours. But perhaps intelligence was never about thinking faster, only about responding beautifully to complexity. And in that sense, a forest is a cathedral of understanding, each tree a slow interpreter of the world. So the next time you walk among leaves, imagine the unseen symphony beneath your feet, a network of sensing roots, whispering molecules and electrical currents passing softly through the ground. Every blade of grass, every vine, every moss-covered stone is listening, remembering, and adapting. And in that stillness, they are not asleep. They are alive with quiet thought, because to be alive, after all, is to feel the world and to change in response. In the slow language of plants, learning begins with response. It starts when the world touches them, when light shifts, when wind passes, when rain falls. And over time, those small reactions begin to form something deeper. Memory. Not memory as we know it, built from neurons and recall, but a biological echo, a change that remains after the moment has passed. One of the most remarkable examples of this comes from a shy green species known as Mimosa pudica, the sensitive plant. If you touch its leaves, they fold inward instantly, collapsing like a curtain at the faintest disturbance. It is a defense mechanism, thought to protect against herbivores or water loss. But what happens when the danger isn't real? In a series of experiments, scientists dropped tiny amounts of water onto mimosa leaves, over and over again, from the same height. At first, the plant reacted every time, leaves closing tightly, but after several repetitions, something extraordinary happened. It stopped responding. The plant had learned that the falling water was harmless, and when the same test was performed days, even weeks later, it still remembered. The leaves remained calm. When presented with a new stimulus, like shaking or heat, the reflex returned immediately. It hadn't grown tired, it had grown wise. No neurons, no brain. Yet somehow a record of experience remained. The plant had filtered signal from noise, choosing when to act and when to rest. This is the hallmark of intelligence, the ability to adapt not only to events, but to meaning. What makes this discovery even more fascinating is that the behavior persisted across environments. When the mimosa plants were moved to new locations, under new conditions, their learned calmness stayed intact. Whatever carried the memory wasn't in the air or soil. It was inside the plant itself, stored somewhere within its living structure. This form of learning, called habituation, is one of the most basic yet powerful ways that organisms handle information. Animals do it all the time, ignoring repetitive, harmless sounds or movements. But for plants, it suggests a new way of seeing the world, one where perception leads not just to reaction, but to understanding. Every repetition, every signal, reshapes the way a plant responds to life, and this ability doesn't end with mimosa. Other species have shown patterns that hint at something similar. Anticipation. In one study, researchers exposed a small flowering plant, Arabidopsis thaliana, to cold stress at the same time every day. After several cycles, the plants began activating their cold defense genes before the chill arrived. They had recognized the pattern of time. They weren't merely reacting, they were predicting. To predict is to remember, and to remember is to think across time. This means that plants are not locked in the moment, as we once believed. They carry an internal sense of rhythm, a timeline of experience encoded in chemical signals and gene expression. When that rhythm repeats, they prepare in advance, responding not to the present, but to the expected. For biologists, this is a radical shift in perspective. It means that plants can, in a way, learn from history. They remember droughts, injuries, and environmental cues. They adjust growth strategies based on what has worked before. And sometimes, those adjustments linger for years, even generations. Through molecular changes known as epigenetic memory, plants can modify how their genes behave without altering their DNA. These adjustments, a kind of biochemical handwriting, allow them to record past stress. A plant that has survived drought, for instance, often passes on that resilience to its offspring. Its seeds sprout with better water conservation, even if they've never experienced drought themselves. This is not evolution in the slow genetic sense. It's experience made heritable. Such inheritance blurs the line between memory and instinct. It shows us that awareness doesn't have to be conscious to be real. When a field of grass bends before the coming wind, or when trees bloom in sync with a season they've yet to feel, what we witness may not be simple reflex. It may be recognition. Imagine then the forest as a library, every trunk and leaf holding fragments of time. Each drought, each storm, each season leaves a trace, shaping the responses of generations to come. And while we may not hear their thoughts, their growth tells the story. In the angle of a branch, in the thickness of bark, in the patience of a seed. Perhaps this is what wisdom looks like in nature. Not quick reactions or clever tricks, but persistence. The art of carrying experience forward. To remember without remembering. To know without knowing. To grow because of what once was. And in that quiet continuity, plants may hold a mirror to us, reminding that memory, at its core, is not a collection of images or words, but a pattern of survival written in life itself. As the night deepens, picture the mimosa closing, not in fear, but in awareness, and think of how even silence can learn. To understand how plants remember, we must first understand how they sense time. For most creatures, time is measured in motion, the beating of a heart, the flicker of breath, the rhythm of sleep and waking. But for plants, time flows through chemistry. Each dawn and dusk, each change of temperature or humidity, marks a pulse in their internal clock, a cycle older than the first forests themselves. This clock, known as the circadian rhythm, is what allows a plant to predict the future. It tells leaves when to open, when to rest, when to produce energy, and when to conserve it. Even in total darkness, plants continue to follow this rhythm, as if their cells keep the memory of the sun alive. It is not instinct in the ordinary sense. It is self-regulation, a biological awareness of time's pattern. In experiments, scientists place plants in environments with no natural light, no sunrise, no sunset, just constant conditions. And yet, the plants continue to raise and lower their leaves in a 24-hour rhythm. They were keeping time. When the researchers shifted the artificial light to mimic shorter or longer days, the plants gradually adjusted, syncing their internal clocks to the new schedule. It was as if they had recalibrated their sense of day and night, a quiet intelligence encoded in molecules rather than thoughts. What's remarkable is how this timekeeping connects to survival. A leaf that anticipates dawn can begin photosynthesis a few moments early, gaining precious energy. A flower that opens before pollinators arrive ensures it will be seen first. A seed that waits for spring rather than responding to a random warm day in winter avoids death in a false thaw. Every one of these acts is a form of prediction, and every prediction begins with memory. Plants don't measure time the way we do, by clocks or calendars. They measure it through oscillations, molecular rhythms that rise and fall like tides inside each cell. Genes turn on and off in repeating waves, driven by feedback loops that track external cues. Temperature, light, even mechanical pressure can reset the cycle, aligning inner time with outer change. Through this delicate calibration, a plant's biology becomes synchronized with the rhythm of the world. It's as if every stem, every petal, listens to the heartbeat of the planet. They don't simply react to what is. They prepare for what will be. When cold approaches, they shift metabolism toward protection. When day length shortens, they ready themselves for rest. The plant, in its quiet way, reads the future through repetition, the same way a river predicts its own flow. But time is only part of the story. Plants also sense context. They remember not just when something happens, but what it means. A certain pattern of light combined with a change in humidity might signal approaching rain. A long sequence of hot days might cue the release of seeds or flowers. And through countless generations, these patterns become embedded in behavior, passed not through conscious thought, but through inherited rhythms of chemistry. Some scientists believe that plants even store experience in the structure of their chromatin, the molecular spool that wraps DNA. When a plant undergoes stress, such as drought or heat, it can leave chemical markers along this structure. Those markers remain long after the stress has passed, influencing how genes respond in the future. In essence, the plant remembers the hardship. Its body becomes a map of what it has endured. What's more, these modifications can sometimes be inherited. Seeds from plants exposed to extreme conditions often germinate with altered sensitivity, already tuned to resist similar challenges. It is a memory without a mind, a wisdom carried in code. This phenomenon, known as epigenetic inheritance, blurs the line between biology and experience. It means that a plant's story doesn't end when it dies. It continues through the chemistry of its descendants. Imagine a desert plant whose ancestors lived through a century of drought. Over time, their descendants develop thicker skins, deeper roots, slower growth. They don't choose these traits consciously, but the memory of survival is written within them. Each leaf, each vein, each cell whispers the same message. Be patient. Conserve. Endure. This slow transference of knowledge across generations reveals a different kind of intelligence, one not based on neurons, but on continuity. Plants may not have a sense of self as we understand it, but they have persistence. They record, adapt, and evolve in ways that mirror our own learning, only stretched across centuries instead of seconds. And through that slowness, they achieve a kind of immortality of understanding, an awareness that outlives the individual. To us, intelligence often means speed, solving, reacting, creating in the blink of an eye. But in the language of plants, intelligence is measured in patience. To survive a drought, to bloom with precision, to sense a change long before it comes. That is thought, slow to the rhythm of life itself. So when you look at a field of grass or a garden at rest, remember, nothing there is truly still. Every blade, every seed, every hidden root is a record of time, a living memory of Earth's cycles, a testament to quiet intelligence. The plants around you are not waiting for the world to act on them. They are already in motion, following the invisible clock of the sun, carrying the memory of every dawn that has ever been. If memory allows plants to learn from time, then communication allows them to learn from one another. And beneath every forest, meadow, and garden lies a network so vast and intricate that some scientists call it the Wood Wide Web. It is not made of wires or digital signals, but of roots and fungi, living threads that connect plant to plant, species to species, tree to seedling, life to life. For decades, we imagined each plant as an isolated individual, quietly growing in its own patch of soil. But the truth is far more extraordinary. Beneath the surface, roots intertwine and fuse with microscopic fungi called mycorrhizae. These fungi act as intermediaries, linking plants through an underground lattice of filaments, thinner than a strand of hair. Through this shared network, chemical signals, nutrients, and even warnings flow across entire ecosystems. When a tree suffers drought or insect attack, it can send chemical messages through its roots. Neighboring trees, even those of different species, receive these messages and alter their behavior, closing stomata to conserve water or producing defensive compounds before the threat reaches them. It's as though one organism whispers to another, "Prepare yourself." The network passes not only nutrients, but knowledge. In some forests, older trees, called mother trees, distribute carbon to the younger ones shaded below. When sunlight fades in the undergrowth, the mother tree transfers sugars through the fungal web, feeding her offspring so they can survive. In return, when she weakens or begins to die, the young trees may send resources back, an exchange not of emotion, but of intricate biological reciprocity. To call this cooperation may sound poetic, but the science supports it. Resource-sharing networks can increase the survival of an entire forest, shaping who thrives and who fades. In laboratory simulations, when parts of this network are severed, when the mycorrhizal fungi are removed, plants lose much of their ability to adapt. They become slower to respond to drought, less efficient at nutrient exchange, and weaker overall. It's as if the intelligence of the forest dims when its connections are broken. This suggests something profound. The mind of a forest is not within a single tree, but between them. Through this web of exchange, plants also appear capable of prioritization. Some trees send more carbon to relatives than to strangers, suggesting a form of kin recognition. Others favor species that return benefits, forming symbiotic alliances that last generations. These aren't moral choices, of course. They are strategies shaped by evolution to preserve the system as a whole. But even so, the result is striking. Forests behave like networks of shared intention. Above ground, communication continues in a different language, that of scent. When a leaf is damaged, many plants release volatile organic compounds into the air. These airborne chemicals drift toward neighboring plants, which detect them and prepare defenses. The messages are astonishingly specific. If a caterpillar chews on a leaf, the plant may release compounds that attract parasitic wasps, the predator of that exact caterpillar. If a bacterial infection strikes instead, the scent profile changes completely, activating internal immune responses instead of calling for allies. This level of precision implies an ability to diagnose and act, a biochemical vocabulary far richer than we once imagined. Consider a stand of acacia trees in the savanna. When grazed upon by antelope, the wounded trees release a burst of ethylene gas. Within minutes, nearby acacias detect the signal and flood their leaves with bitter tannins, making themselves unpalatable. The herd moves on, and the forest survives. Such behaviors hint at a collective defense, a kind of awareness that transcends individuality. Some scientists now describe plant ecosystems as distributed cognitive systems. Each organism contributes to a shared field of information. No single tree directs the process, yet together they achieve coordination, resilience, and balance. This decentralized intelligence mirrors the principles of neural networks, but with roots and chemistry instead of neurons and electricity. In other words, nature built the first collaborative information system long before humans built the internet. To walk through a forest, then, is to walk through a living network of communication, a quiet conversation carried in carbon and scent, in hydrogen bonds and mineral dust. Every root crossing another is a message exchanged. Every fungal thread, a line of connection between worlds unseen. It is a reminder that intelligence is not always internal. Sometimes it exists in the spaces between, in the relationships that link life together. We tend to imagine thought as something that happens within a mind. But what if the forest itself is the thinker? Each leaf a neuron, each fungus a synapse, and each exchange a flicker of understanding. When viewed through this lens, communication becomes cognition. The forest becomes a memory system, a living circuit for adaptation. And perhaps that is the secret wisdom of plants, that awareness need not belong to one, so long as it is shared by many, that to survive is to connect, and that the most ancient intelligence of all is the one that grows together. In every forest, field, or garden, the roots of one plant often weave into the roots of another. Sometimes they compete, stealing nutrients or blocking growth. But other times, something unexpected happens. Cooperation. This quiet partnership reveals another layer of intelligence, the ability to make decisions based on context. Plants are not guided by instinct alone. They seem to choose when to compete and when to share. Experiments have shown that plants can distinguish between kin and strangers. In one study with sea rocket plants, a small coastal species, individuals grown next to siblings behaved differently than those grown beside unrelated plants. When surrounded by kin, their roots spread modestly, leaving space for each other. But when placed next to strangers, they expanded aggressively, fighting for soil. The plants had no eyes, no scent of bloodline, and yet they somehow recognized family. How do they do this? Scientists believe the answer lies in chemistry. Roots release a variety of exudates, sugars, amino acids, hormones, and signaling molecules. These secretions carry information about the plant's identity, stress, and health. Other roots detect these chemical fingerprints and adjust their own behavior accordingly. In the silent soil, molecules become messages, and the community of plants begins to shape itself through subtle negotiation. This ability to discriminate between self and other blurs the boundary between instinct and cognition. If a plant can evaluate who is nearby and alter its growth strategy to match, it is engaging in something more than reaction. It is assessment. It is reading its environment and making decisions that depend on social context. That, in essence, is the beginning of awareness. And the complexity doesn't stop underground. Above the soil, plants also use chemical signals to identify neighbors, competitors, and allies. In mixed communities, some species emit compounds that inhibit the germination of rival seeds, a kind of biochemical territorial defense known as allelopathy. Others release growth-promoting chemicals that benefit their symbiotic partners. Each signal has intent embedded in it, whether to compete, to cooperate, or to coexist. In the desert, this behavior becomes survival strategy. Certain shrubs synchronize their flowering with rainfall, not individually, but collectively. When the first drops arrive, chemical signals spread across the population through shared soil moisture and microbial interactions. Within days, hundreds of plants bloom together, overwhelming pollinators with abundance. By acting in unison, they ensure reproduction before the arid heat returns. This is not command and control. It is emergent coordination, born from shared sensitivity. The more researchers study these interactions, the clearer it becomes. The intelligence of plants is not individual, but relational. It arises from connection, from constant feedback loops between living things. Each organism adjusts to the other until balance emerges. This distributed form of decision-making, decentralized, adaptive, and collective, resembles what mathematicians call swarm intelligence. Like flocks of birds or schools of fish, the wisdom of a forest comes from the harmony of many, and yet, within this harmony lies conflict, the eternal tension between giving and taking. A plant must decide how much energy to devote to growth versus defense, competition versus cooperation. When nutrients are scarce, should it hoard or share? When shade encroaches, should it rise or adapt to the dark? These are trade-offs, not instincts. Choices that depend on the surrounding conditions. Plants evaluate them using an intricate web of internal and external signals, balancing risk and reward. One striking experiment with Arabidopsis vistaliana revealed this balance perfectly. When grown in soil with high salt concentrations, a condition harmful to roots, some plants continued expanding into the salty zone if nutrient levels were high enough to justify the risk. But others held back when the reward was low. The decision was not fixed, it was calculated. The plant had performed a kind of cost-benefit analysis, integrating information about both danger and opportunity. No neurons, no thoughts, yet a choice that mirrors the logic of reasoning. What emerges from these studies is a portrait of quiet sophistication. Plants are neither mechanical nor mystical. They are problem solvers embedded in a world of constraints, finding balance between survival and connection. Their intelligence is contextual, shaped by circumstance, guided by feedback, and refined over time. And in this dynamic, we see the outlines of a mind without a center, a cognition not contained in a head, but distributed through life itself. If you could see this process in motion, roots branching, chemicals flowing, signals pulsing between leaves, you might think of it as thoughts slowed to the speed of seasons. Each decision unfolds not in milliseconds, but in days or months, yet its logic remains consistent. The plant tests, measures, remembers, and adapts. It gathers information, weighs its options, and chooses the path of least resistance or greatest reward. In doing so, it transforms survival into strategy. Perhaps the truest sign of intelligence is not speed, but sensitivity. The ability to read the environment, to respond to complexity, and to adjust behavior accordingly. By that measure, the forest may be wiser than we ever imagined, for in its slow conversations, its shared decisions, and its invisible alliances, the plant kingdom demonstrates what may be the oldest form of logic in the universe. The logic of life learning how to live together. If plants can recognize their kin and negotiate their surroundings, then what else might they be capable of? The more deeply we look, the clearer it becomes that they don't just respond to their environment. They interpret it. They sense patterns, make predictions, and share those predictions with others through invisible chemical messages. It's not communication in words or symbols, but a form of language written in molecules, scents, and subtle electric pulses. One of the most astonishing discoveries in modern botany is that plants are constantly talking, not metaphorically, but chemically. When threatened, hungry, or thirsty, they release specific blends of compounds that travel through the air or soil. These signals can warn nearby plants, attract helpful insects, or even mislead predators. It is a living code, dynamic and adaptable, one that changes with context and meaning. Take the case of acacia trees across the African plains. When a grazing antelope begins to bite their leaves, the tree emits a burst of ethylene gas. Within minutes, neighboring acacias detect it and start producing bitter tannins that make their leaves unpalatable. The signal travels downwind, reaching trees dozens of meters away. It's a silent alarm, spreading from one to the next like a whisper through the savannah. And as the herd moves, the warning moves faster. A cascade of chemical awareness protecting an entire community. Similar communication occurs underground through the fungal networks linking roots together. A plant facing drought may send hormonal signals that prompt its neighbors to close their stomata early, conserving water even before stress arrives. This preemptive behavior, anticipating danger before it happens, transforms individual survival into collective intelligence. The plants are not reacting blindly. They are coordinating. They are sharing information about the future. These underground networks operate like a living nervous system, except the impulses are not electric sparks, but flows of carbon, water, and minerals. Through the mycorrhizal web, a forest can reallocate resources, strengthen the weak, and balance the needs of many. Larger trees may send carbon to shaded saplings, while younger ones return nutrients during periods of stress. This constant exchange suggests that even at the level of roots and fungi, there exists a social economy of life, one built on reciprocity, not competition. Some researchers have likened this to a biological internet, but in truth, it's something deeper. Not merely a transfer of data, but a transfer of meaning. The information that passes through these networks is not arbitrary. It carries consequence. A signal about drought means prepare. A signal about herbivores means defend. A signal about shade means stretch. Each message alters behavior, changes chemistry, and shifts the rhythm of life across the forest. Meaning, then, does not require consciousness. It only requires connection. Above ground, chemical dialogue continues in the open air. Tomato plants, for example, release different scents depending on the type of insect attacking them. If it's a caterpillar, they emit compounds that summon parasitic wasps. If it's an aphid, they release an entirely different blend, attracting ladybugs. Each signal recruits a specific ally, the plant's equivalent of calling for backup, and the communication doesn't stop there. Nearby plants, even of different species, overhear these warnings and boost their own defenses. This kind of cross-species eavesdropping shows that plant language, though chemical, is also shared. The air between plants, in truth, is never empty. It's filled with invisible words, floating signals that rise and fall like breath. What we call fresh air in a forest is also a field of information. The forest's collective voice, exchanged in whispers too slow for human ears. When you walk beneath the canopy, you walk through a web of messages, stress calls, seasonal cues, songs of cooperation. Each molecule you inhale has likely carried meaning once, long before it reached you. Even more remarkable is that plants can tailor their messages depending on who is nearby. A sagebrush surrounded by relatives emits a slightly different chemical mix than one surrounded by strangers. The relatives respond more strongly, as if the signal were personalized, a dialect shared only among kin. Over generations, these small variations may form local languages, unique chemical signatures tuned to a specific ecosystem. This adaptability means that plant communication is not fixed. It evolves, learning and refining through feedback. Imagine a forest where every species speaks in scent, each tone tuned by history. A pine releases a sharp, resinous warning. A fern sends a faint note of decay before rain. A flower shifts its fragrance at dusk, signaling pollinators that the time for nectar has come. The forest becomes a chorus, slow, continuous, deliberate. Each message shapes another, creating an atmosphere of awareness. What emerges is a new vision of intelligence, not as something that happens inside a mind, but as something that happens between minds. A distributed awareness woven from millions of tiny interactions. No single tree commands it, no root directs it, and yet the forest behaves as one. It learns, it adapts, it communicates. Its wisdom is not stored in any single organism, but in the web of relationships that unite them all. Perhaps then, plants are not silent at all. Perhaps the quiet we hear in a forest is not absence, but harmony. A steady conversation carried through sap, soil, and wind. And if we could listen on their time scale, if we could slow our thoughts to match their rhythm, we might realize that every leaf is speaking, and that the world itself is never truly still. If the language of plants is chemical, then its grammar is balance, the art of choosing when to compete, when to cooperate, and when to listen. Through countless silent exchanges, plants create ecosystems that think together. They form what scientists now call collective intelligence, an emergent mind that arises not from a single organism but from the harmony of many. It is a kind of slow wisdom, woven through soil and air. To see this intelligence at work, we can look deep into the forest. There, towering trees share resources with shaded saplings. Old roots feed new shoots. Dying branches release nutrients back into the system. This cycle of giving and receiving is not random. It follows patterns of efficiency that mirror the flow of information in neural networks. Each organism contributes a signal, a pulse, a small decision, and together they sustain a living equilibrium that no individual could maintain alone. Scientists studying temperate forests have discovered that carbon, nitrogen, and even warning compounds move through shared fungal webs in measurable directions. These exchanges are not evenly distributed. They are guided by need and relationship. A tree with surplus energy will pass carbon toward a weaker neighbor. A sapling struggling in the shade may send back micronutrients to strengthen its ally. This reciprocity happens constantly, beneath our feet, in a world we never see. A vast underground conversation where survival depends on generosity as much as competition. What's more, these interactions seem to have rules, a kind of biological economy. Not every tree gives equally. Some species invest more in kin, others favor diversity to stabilize the ecosystem, and the network itself behaves like a self-organizing system. It redistributes resources to minimize stress, repair imbalances, and maintain the collective flow of life. In this sense, a forest doesn't just survive, it manages itself. The implications are profound. It means that cognition may not require a central brain at all. A distributed system, whether made of neurons or roots, can still store, process, and transmit information. It can learn from feedback, adapt to change, and optimize outcomes. What the forest does chemically, our own brains do electrically. two architectures, one purpose: to make sense of complexity and persist through time. Even more fascinating is how plants can use this web for communication beyond mere survival. When certain trees are damaged by pests, their distress signals can travel not only to immediate neighbors, but across entire clusters of species. Different plants interpret these signals in unique ways, adjusting growth, chemical defense, or flowering times. It's as if the network translates a single cry into a spectrum of responses, each adapted to the listener's biology. This collective flexibility suggests something remarkable, not just awareness, but interpretation. To interpret is to understand context, and context is what gives meaning to information. For example, an herbivore attack may trigger a defensive response in one plant, but in another, it might activate a reproductive surge, a last attempt to ensure its genes survive. Both responses are intelligent because both serve a purpose fitted to circumstance. The difference is not in what the plant hears, but in how it understands. Some researchers now speak of ecological cognition, the idea that intelligence can emerge from the interaction between organisms and their environment. In this model, the boundaries of the mind dissolve. A plant's awareness extends beyond its body, into the network of others around it. Each exchange of chemicals, of light, of water, becomes a thought shared between many. The forest, in this view, is not a collection of individuals, but a single, distributed intelligence evolving through dialogue. You can see this in the way forests respond to climate. When temperature rises, species shift their flowering times, collectively rebalancing pollination schedules. When drought strikes, the community redistributes water and slows overall growth, conserving resources across the system. No single tree directs this. It happens through countless small decisions, each plant responding to local cues but influencing the whole. Together, they find a new equilibrium, one that keeps the forest alive through crisis after crisis. This cooperative intelligence is not sentimental. It is not kindness as we know it. It is efficiency born from interdependence. Every action, every signal, every exchange has consequence, feeding back into the web of life. And in that feedback, awareness emerges, not in a heartbeat, but in a heartbeat's echo stretched across thousands of roots. Think of it this way. Our own brains are networks of billions of neurons. Each one fires, connects, and passes energy forward. No single neuron knows what the mind is doing, yet together they create consciousness. In a forest, each plant plays the same role. Each root, each fungal thread, each leaf functions like a neuron. The forest then may be its own kind of mind, one that grows instead of thinks, one that breathes instead of speaks. And perhaps this is what the ancients intuited long before modern science, that the earth itself could feel, not in emotion, but in awareness, that the land, water, and sky were not separate, but bound in living thought. Today, we call it ecology, but long ago it was simply wisdom, the understanding that everything that lives also listens. As you imagine that vast web beneath your feet, remember, every tree is a signal tower, every leaf a listener, every breeze a messenger. The forest is not still, it is thinking, in chemistry, in connection, in rhythm, slow enough to fill an age. And through that thought, the world endures. If plants can communicate through roots and air, if they can sense and adapt as one, then perhaps it's time to ask a deeper question. How do they decide? Decision-making, after all, is the essence of intelligence. To choose among possibilities, to weigh options, to act with purpose rather than impulse. These are the traits we once believed belonged only to creatures with brains. But nature, in its quiet wisdom, has been proving us wrong again. Within a single plant, thousands of decisions unfold each day, not consciously, but conditionally. Should a root grow left or right? Should a leaf expand or remain folded? Should the plant allocate resources to reproduction or hold energy in reserve for drought? Each of these actions depends on information gathered from the world, processed by cells, and integrated into a coherent response. The result is choice. Slow, chemical, deliberate choice. This form of reasoning emerges from what scientists call signal integration. A plant's cells are constantly flooded with stimuli: light, temperature, water, minerals, mechanical pressure, even electromagnetic fields. Each signal competes for attention, and the plant must balance them all. It is not enough to react. It must prioritize. For instance, when sunlight is strong but water is scarce, a plant must decide whether to open its stomata to photosynthesize or close them to conserve moisture. The wrong choice could mean death. The right one could mean survival. In laboratory studies, researchers have observed this balancing act in exquisite detail. In one experiment, bean plants were exposed to both a rotating light source and a nearby water supply. At first, they grew toward the light, their natural reflex. But when the water source became limited, their growth shifted. They began directing more energy toward roots, sacrificing light for hydration. They had reevaluated their priorities. To the human eye, it was just growth. To the plant, it was strategy. This ability to integrate competing signals mirrors the logic of computation. Like a biological processor, the plant compares inputs and produces outputs based on specific conditions. Some researchers describe this as if-then reasoning encoded in biochemistry. If light intensity is high and moisture is sufficient, then expand leaves. If nutrient levels are low or salinity is high, then delay flowering. Each decision rule is built from molecules, enzymes, and hormones, a living algorithm running continuously across millions of cells. Hormones like auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, and abscisic acid act as the chemical language of this algorithm. They move through the plant like messengers, carrying orders from cell to cell. When one hormone dominates, growth accelerates. When another rises, it slows. Together, they form a dynamic equilibrium that allows plants to think in gradients, not absolutes. There are no on-off switches in their world, only subtle balances, shifting endlessly in search of harmony. This system doesn't just respond to the present, it learns from the past. A plant, exposed repeatedly to drought, becomes more sensitive to water stress, closing its pores sooner the next time. A plant that endures cold activates protective proteins faster with each exposure. This adaptive recalibration is known as priming. It's a biological memory that enhances future decisions, the foundation of learning without neurons. Some of the most remarkable evidence for plant decision-making comes from their responses to competition. When two seedlings grow side by side, they sense each other's presence through changes in light and chemical signals. If they detect a taller rival nearby, they accelerate upward growth. But if that rival belongs to the same species or family, they may adjust differently, extending roots instead of stems, sharing rather than fighting. These choices vary with context and condition, proving that plants do not follow rigid instructions. They evaluate. A vine searching for support offers another glimpse into plant logic. It moves in slow spirals, testing its environment with tendrils that touch and release. If the surface is rough or firm, it coils tightly. If smooth or unstable, it withdraws and searches elsewhere. This feedback-based behavior shows awareness of texture, structure, and distance, the ability to test hypotheses through movement. Each contact is a question, and each twist is an answer. The Venus flytrap offers an even more dramatic example. Its trap only closes when two tiny hairs are touched within about 20 seconds. A safeguard against wasting energy on raindrops or debris. This means the plant is not only detecting stimuli, but counting them, comparing events across time. That counting requires a short-term electrical memory, a way of holding information, processing it, and acting when thresholds are met. It's the simplest form of logic, yet it demonstrates a profound truth. Even without brains, life can compute. In recent years, researchers have recorded electrical waves traveling through plants that resemble action potentials in neurons. These impulses transmit information about injury, temperature, or light from one region to another. The speed is slower than in animals, but the principle is the same: electrical language used to coordinate action. Some biologists now suggest that these signal patterns might serve as the equivalent of thoughts, sequences of electrochemical activity that encode meaning within the plant body. The distinction between a nervous system and a signaling network then becomes one of degree, not kind. When we recognize this, the definition of intelligence begins to shift. It is no longer about having a brain, but about the ability to process information and make adaptive choices. A forest achieves this collectively. A single plant does it internally. Both follow the same rule: interpret the world, act upon it, and adjust in response. That, in its most universal sense, is cognition. Perhaps the reason we failed to see this for so long is because we measure thought in seconds, while plants think in seasons. Their ideas unfold in gestures of growth: the tilt of a leaf, the bend of a root, the bloom of a flower at just the right moment. Each of these movements, slow as they are, carries the weight of a decision that has already been made. We see patience, they see precision. We see silence, they see signal. And maybe that's the most humbling realization of all, that intelligence does not require hurry, sound, or awareness, as we define it. It only requires the ability to choose well, to live wisely in a changing world, to balance the unseen variables of existence until harmony returns. That is what the plant has mastered: not speed, but subtlety; not thought as we know it, but understanding shaped by stillness. If plants can decide, then they can also compute. Not with circuits or silicon, but with biochemistry, a language of ions, hormones, and time. Each response, each adjustment, is a line of code written in chemistry, executed through growth. And though we once believed only animals could perform such logic, the evidence hidden in leaves and roots tells another story. At the heart of this story is conditional reasoning, the plant's ability to process if this, then that. If sunlight is abundant and water is scarce, slow growth. If shade deepens but nutrients are rich, stretch higher. If both danger and opportunity coexist, evaluate which risk matters more. This sequence of biochemical choices operates across every living plant, from the smallest moss to the tallest tree. Each cell, each hormone, contributes a piece of the decision. Together, they form a distributed network of logic. To a human observer, this might seem mechanical, an automatic reflex of molecules. But that assumption misses something essential. These chemical networks do not follow rigid scripts. They adapt based on history. A plant that has endured stress before reacts differently from one that hasn't. The difference lies in priming, the stored imprint of previous experience, waiting to guide new responses. In a way, this makes plants the slowest learning computers on Earth, machines of living memory, shaped by trial and adaptation. Where a digital system processes information in binary, plants process it through gradients. Not 0 or 1, but more or less, sooner or later, stronger or softer. Their decisions unfold in fluid degrees, mirroring the subtle complexity of the environments they inhabit. Researchers studying electrical signaling in plants have discovered something extraordinary. When exposed to stress, plants generate slow-wave potentials, electrical impulses that travel through stems and leaves. These waves resemble the low-frequency oscillations seen in animal neurons. When one part of a plant is wounded, these signals travel throughout the body, activating genes related to repair or defense. In other words, the plant broadcasts its injury and coordinates a response. The process is slower than a thought, but faster than growth. An invisible intelligence working at the speed of ions. But these signals aren't simple alarms. They vary in frequency, amplitude, and duration depending on the type of threat. Insect bite, drought, heat, or mechanical damage. The plant interprets these patterns like a language, adjusting chemical reactions accordingly. Calcium ions act as punctuation, rising and falling like syllables in an electrical sentence. Each pulse carries meaning, encoding environmental information into the rhythm of living current. To manage all this complexity, plants rely on an astonishing internal organization. Their communication pathways overlap, forming feedback loops that resemble circuits. One signal amplifies another, a third suppresses both. In systems theory, this is known as logical gating. And remarkably, plants perform it without intention, through the physics of life itself. Some scientists have begun modeling these interactions using computational analogs, showing that plant tissues can execute logical operations. And, or, not. The same principles that underpin digital computers. Imagine, for instance, a plant's defense mechanism. It might only activate when both sunlight is present and insect damage is detected. That's an A&D gate. Or it may produce toxins unless the stress is passed, a NOT gate. These biochemical logics allow plants to respond conditionally to complex combinations of cues. It's slow computation, but precise. A thinking process that unfolds in color, scent, and growth. Now consider that each plant cell participates in thousands of these interactions simultaneously. Across the entire organism, the number of conditional operations per day could number in the millions. This is not randomness, it is coordination. And like any distributed computer, the plant achieves results through local action and global harmony. Each part reacts to its environment, but also adjusts to feedback from the rest. If one leaf closes its pores, others follow in a wave, preserving balance across the whole. Some biologists describe this as non-neural intelligence, computation without consciousness. A plant doesn't know it's solving equations, but its body behaves as though it does. It gathers information, integrates data, and produces optimized responses, all without a single neuron. In this sense, the distinction between thought and adaptation becomes blurred. Is a brain the only organ that can think, or is thinking simply what complex life does when faced with complexity? Even more remarkable is that plants appear capable of learning thresholds, adjusting how easily certain reactions are triggered. If a plant experiences repeated mild stress, it becomes less sensitive to it over time. The system tunes itself, filtering noise from signal. This is the same principle behind habituation in animals, and behind machine learning in artificial intelligence. The plant refines its responses based on repetition, improving performance while conserving energy. It doesn't learn words or patterns, but it learns efficiency, a kind of evolutionary wisdom written in hormones and time. There's also evidence that plants can engage in something like anticipatory regulation. In controlled studies, Arabidopsis plants exposed to temperature changes at regular intervals began activating protective genes before the next shift occurred. They weren't reacting, they were predicting. This implies a basic form of expectation, built on remembered rhythms, a living model of time guiding molecular decisions. Such capacity reveals a truth long overlooked. Even without brains, plants process uncertainty. They calculate probability through chemistry. When viewed from this perspective, the boundary between intelligence and biology dissolves. What is thought, if not the ability to model cause and effect? What is learning, if not the refinement of those models through experience? By these measures, a tree, a vine, or a blade of grass qualifies as a participant in cognition. Not metaphorically, but functionally. The poet might say the forest dreams in green, but the scientist could argue that it computes in chlorophyll. Each photon absorbed, each ion exchanged, each molecule released is a signal in a network older than our species. It is thought at planetary scale, a dialogue between matter and memory. And so the next time you see a leaf swaying in the wind, remember, you are not just watching motion. You are witnessing the output of an ancient algorithm, one that has been running uninterrupted for nearly 500 million years. A computation written in silence, executed by sunlight, and stored in the endless patience of living things. Every organism keeps a record of the world, but plants do it differently. Where animals carry memories in neurons, plants carry them in molecules. Each leaf, each root, each petal contains the trace of past experiences. A living archive written not in words or thoughts, but in the subtle language of gene expression. This molecular memory allows them to learn, to adapt, and sometimes even to prepare for events that have not yet arrived. This concept, known as epigenetic memory, has transformed our understanding of what a plant can know. Epigenetics is the study of how organisms change gene activity without changing the DNA sequence itself. Think of DNA as the script of life, the same words for every cell. But epigenetics as the stage direction, deciding which lines are spoken and when. In plants, these stage directions are written in chemical tags that attach to DNA or the proteins around it. They don't rewrite the genetic code. They change how it's read. When a plant experiences stress, drought, heat, cold, or attack, it adjusts its epigenetic markers. Certain genes become more active, while others fall silent. These changes can persist long after the stress ends, serving as a kind of biological memory. A plant that has endured drought, for instance, will close its stomata faster the next time water runs low. It has remembered thirst. Even more astonishingly, its offspring may inherit that preparedness. Seeds from stressed parents often germinate with built-in resilience, tougher skins, faster responses, deeper roots. This is inheritance not by mutation, but by experience. Epigenetic memory is one of nature's quiet miracles. It allows a plant to pass down lessons without altering its genetic blueprint. In a sense, it gives plants something akin to culture, a way to transmit knowledge through generations without the need for teaching or imitation. One plant's suffering becomes another's survival advantage. The forest learns, leaf by leaf, season by season. Scientists have observed this phenomenon in wheat, maize, Arabidopsis, and even simple mosses. After exposure to stress, these plants retained altered gene expression for months or years. And when their seeds were grown under normal conditions, those changes persisted, as if the memory had become part of identity. This continuity across generations blurs the line between evolution and learning. It suggests that adaptation doesn't always wait for genetic change. Sometimes, life writes temporary instructions directly onto its own code, ensuring the next generation starts with wisdom already learned. What's remarkable is how plants know what to remember. They don't store every detail, only what matters. Epigenetic patterns are selective. Harmless fluctuations are ignored. Recurring stress is recorded. The system seems designed for efficiency, filtering the noise of existence to preserve the signals of survival. It's an elegant solution: memory without burden, experience without confusion. Inside the cell, this memory is managed by chromatin, the complex of DNA wrapped around proteins called histons. When stress occurs, enzymes modify these histons, loosening or tightening the DNA coils. In doing so, they control which genes can be accessed, which can be silenced. Think of it like a library whose shelves rearrange themselves depending on the season. In drought, the water-saving books move to the front. In cold, the frost defense volumes open first. And even after the crisis ends, the shelf remains slightly altered, a record of what was once important. Over time, these molecular bookmarks accumulate, creating a personalized memory map for each plant. Two genetically identical individuals may respond very differently to the same stress if their histories differ. One remembers struggle, the other does not. This individuality, the idea that experience shapes identity, brings plants closer to us than we ever imagined. They too are products of what they have endured. But memory, in any form, is not without cost. Maintaining these molecular imprints requires energy and precision. If the balance shifts too far, memory can become maladaptive. A plant primed for drought might conserve water excessively in times of abundance. So the system constantly recalibrates, erasing what no longer serves and reinforcing what still matters. This dynamic, flexible balance is part of what makes plant intelligence so extraordinary. It is not rigid, it learns when to forget. Some researchers now suspect that epigenetic processes are the reason forests appear to anticipate changes in climate. Populations exposed to generations of heat or dryness begin to exhibit region-specific traits even before evolutionary timescales can explain them. It's as though the collective memory of the forest tunes itself to the weather. A feedback loop between life and environment, operating silently beneath the canopy. Each generation fine-tunes the next, not through mutation, but through remembered experience encoded in chemistry. If we were to view this at scale, the effect would be breathtaking. A forest becomes a living archive of environmental history. Every tree contains within it the memory of past droughts, fires, and rains. The soil, rich with fallen leaves and mycelial threads, preserves those memories as nutrients, passing them forward into new roots. Each season adds a layer to the great biological memory of the planet, a story written in carbon and water. Perhaps then, plants remind us that memory need not be conscious to be profound. They show that life's greatest intelligence may lie not in knowing, but in remembering wisely. To remember what sustains you, to forget what does not, and to pass forward the lessons that keep the world alive. When the next generation of seeds stirs beneath the soil, they are not blank slates. They are living journals written by their ancestors in the quiet handwriting of molecules. Each sprout that emerges carries a whisper of history, a promise of adaptation, and the resilience of everything that came before. In that sense, the forest itself is memory, not a single mind, but an endless chain of recollection, learning to live again and again, in tune with the rhythm of the earth. Memory in plants doesn't stop at the edge of their roots. It extends into the soil itself, shared among countless living partners, fungi, bacteria, and other plants, forming a vast collective system of exchange. It is here, beneath our feet, that the intelligence of ecosystems becomes most visible. For in this hidden world, life is not isolated, it is networked. Every root, every fungal thread, every grain of soil participates in a dialogue that has lasted for hundreds of millions of years. Scientists call this the mycorrhizal network, a symbiotic relationship between plant roots and fungi. The fungi receive sugars from the plants, produced through photosynthesis. In return, they extend the plant's reach into the soil, gathering nutrients and water that roots alone could never access. It's a partnership so efficient that nearly 90% of all terrestrial plants depend on it. But this relationship goes far beyond simple trade. It's also a channel for communication, a biological internet transmitting information between individuals and species. In the early 1990s, researchers made a discovery that changed how we see forests forever. When one tree was shaded or stressed, neighboring trees, connected through fungal filaments, began to alter their own behavior. They increased sugar output, redirected nutrients, and sometimes even reduced their own growth. The implication was staggering. Information about stress was moving through the underground network, prompting coordinated responses. The forest, it seemed, was aware of itself. Over time, the picture grew clearer. Older, established trees, dubbed mother trees, were found to send carbon and nitrogen to younger saplings growing in their shadow. The mother trees fed their offspring through the fungal web, nurturing them until they could reach sunlight on their own. When those older trees were cut down, the young often withered, deprived not only of shade, but of the invisible support that sustained them. The forest was not just a collection of individuals. It was a living family. Even more astonishing, trees appear to distinguish kin from strangers in these networks. Carbon flow between mother trees and their offspring is greater than between unrelated species. Some even send distress signals when attacked, priming nearby relatives for defense. In doing so, they create a form of social memory, one that stretches across generations. The forest, in essence, becomes a single organism made of many bodies, bound together by a shared awareness of past and present. When scientists disrupted these fungal networks, either by removing the fungi or sterilizing soil, the effects were immediate. Plants lost their ability to share nutrients efficiently. Their growth became uneven. Disease spread more easily. Without the fungal web, cooperation collapsed, and the ecosystem fractured. It was as if the forest had lost its collective mind. Through this lens, the wood wide web becomes more than a metaphor. It is an actual system of distributed intelligence, a network where information flows continuously, guiding behavior at scales far beyond the individual. Like neurons in a brain, each connection adds capacity for complexity. A single tree may hold thousands of fungal partnerships, linking it indirectly to every other tree within reach. The result is a superorganism, a decentralized yet coordinated consciousness of soil, roots, and mycelium. This kind of networked intelligence operates by feedback, not command. No central node controls the whole. Instead, signals travel in waves, chemical, electrical, or hydraulic, until balance is restored. When water runs low, the network redistributes moisture. When sunlight changes, energy flows to those who need it most. And when disaster strikes, a fire, a pest, a storm, the forest reorganizes itself, sending resources to pockets of regeneration. This is intelligence as adaptation, slow, patient, and systemic. In many ways, it resembles the architecture of human-designed systems. Modern scientists studying distributed computing often draw parallels between mycorrhizal networks and digital networks. Both rely on redundancy, feedback, and error correction to maintain stability. Both resist collapse through diversity and constant communication. But while the internet consumes energy to process data, the forest creates energy as it learns, turning sunlight, water, and carbon into information stored in life itself. Perhaps what's most profound about this realization is its implication for how we define awareness. If intelligence can arise from networks of interaction, then awareness is not a property of an individual. It's a property of relationships. No tree alone knows the weather, but the forest as a whole remembers patterns of wind and rain. No single root anticipates drought, but together the system adjusts to it before it comes. Awareness, in this sense, is emergent. It blooms between things, not within them. And this awareness shapes not only survival, but also behavior. Forests coordinate flowering and fruiting cycles through these underground cues. They synchronize with pollinators and even communicate with fungi to influence the spread of spores. The entire system hums with quiet complexity, every action producing a ripple of consequence that echoes through the soil. To stand in a forest, then, is to stand inside a mind, one that breathes with the earth, thinking in the language of connection rather than reflection. Its thoughts are not words, but waves, water drawn from root to leaf, carbon exchanged in unseen agreements, nitrogen traded in silent generosity. And within that flow, life finds balance again and again. The intelligence of the forest is not an illusion. It is the living proof that awareness can exist without ego, that consciousness can be distributed, and that wisdom may be born not from isolation, but from communion. The next time you walk beneath trees, remember that you are not an observer but a participant. Your breath is part of their computation. Your heartbeat echoes their rhythm. You are inside their thought, a fleeting signal moving through the mind of the living earth. If the forest is a networked mind, then sound may be one of its most surprising senses. For decades, we assumed plants could not hear. They had no ears, no nervous system, no reason to listen. And yet, modern research has revealed something extraordinary. Plants respond to vibrations, the soft tremors of sound waves traveling through air, water, and soil. They feel sound, and in doing so, they seem to use it as another language of awareness. In laboratories around the world, biologists have begun testing how plants react to specific frequencies. Roots of young corn plants have been observed bending toward the source of certain low-frequency vibrations, the same frequencies produced by flowing water. When the sound of water was played through speakers buried in the soil, roots changed direction, growing toward it even when no moisture was present. It was as if they could hear the promise of survival. This ability is called acoustic sensing, and though it may seem mysterious, it follows the same logic as other plant senses. Tiny mechanoreceptors within cells detect physical movement. In this case, the minute oscillations caused by sound waves. These signals are then converted into chemical and electrical impulses, spreading through the plant like a message. The result is behavior, growth, movement, or chemical change triggered by vibration. But sound in the plant world is not only external. Plants themselves produce vibrations. When water travels through stems or gas bubbles move through tissues, they create faint acoustic emissions. These ultrasonic clicks, too high for human hearing, form patterns that can reveal a plant's internal state. Researchers using sensitive microphones have detected distinct sounds emitted when plants are stressed, dehydrated, or physically damaged. Each condition creates its own signature frequency, like the heartbeat of a living machine. What's remarkable is that neighboring plants seem to respond to these sounds. In controlled environments, when one plant was subjected to drought stress and began producing ultrasonic clicks, others nearby altered their water use patterns. Even though no direct contact or chemical exchange occurred, the only connection was vibration. It appears that plants can listen to one another through sound, detecting distress and adapting before it reaches them. In this sense, the air becomes a messenger, carrying signals of survival from one life to another. Sound also plays a role above the soil in ways we are only beginning to understand. Pollinators, for example, make sound. Bees generate specific frequencies as they approach flowers, the buzz of their wings vibrating at roughly 300 Hz. Certain flowers, like those of tomato or blueberry plants, respond uniquely to these frequencies. When they sense the vibration of a bee's flight, they release more pollen. To the plant, sound becomes a signal of opportunity. It listens for the approach of life and answers in kind. This sensitivity extends even to music. While popular myths of plants growing to classical symphonies may exaggerate, real studies have found measurable effects. Continuous exposure to harmonic, low-frequency sound waves can accelerate germination or influence nutrient uptake in some species. The mechanism remains debated, but one possibility is resonance, the natural synchronization of a plant's internal rhythms with external vibrations. Just as wind can cause a branch to sway, sound can cause cells to align in subtle, energy-efficient patterns. It's less about enjoyment and more about coherence, a physical harmony that supports life. Imagine then A forest not as silent, but as filled with inaudible symphonies. The hum of sap moving through trunks, the crackle of roots breaking soil, the whisper of fungal threads exchanging nutrients. Each vibration adds to the living soundscape of the earth. It is not noise, it is information. A continuous background conversation between all things that grow. And while our ears cannot detect it, the forest is listening. Some scientists have suggested that this acoustic sensitivity might even help plants sense approaching dangers, such as the footsteps of herbivores or the rumble of rain. A falling droplet produces a distinctive frequency, different from that of an insect or a grazing animal. Plants may use these signals to anticipate and prepare, adjusting water balance or mechanical strength before impact. It's a hypothesis still under study, but if true, it means that plants experience the world not in silence, but through a tapestry of vibrations. Even at the smallest scale, sound leaves its mark. Inside a cell, molecular interactions generate oscillations in rhythm with chemical reactions. Each pulse of calcium or wave of proton flow creates a microscopic hum, a vibration that travels through tissue and influences behavior elsewhere. At this level, sound is not just a phenomenon. It is a fundamental part of life's structure. All living things, in one way or another, vibrate in response to existence itself. Perhaps that is the hidden secret of the green world, that to grow is to resonate, to find harmony with the frequencies of the earth. A tree sways not merely in wind, but in rhythm with the unseen vibrations of its ecosystem. Roots pulse in sync with subterranean tremors. Leaves tremble with the low murmur of bees and rain. The forest is not quiet. It sings, slowly, deeply, endlessly. We too are part of this symphony. Every breath we take vibrates through the air they listen to. Our voices ripple through the same atmosphere that carries their signals. To live, then, is to participate in the world's ongoing conversation of sound and motion. So the next time you walk through a grove, try to imagine what you cannot hear. The frequencies of life passing through the ground and through you. An orchestra without audience, playing a song that began before humanity had ears to listen. Because silence, in truth, does not exist. It is simply the limit of what we can perceive. If sound is one language of plants, then form is another. Across billions of years, life has perfected the art of transformation, of reshaping itself in response to its surroundings. And among all forms of life, plants are masters of this adaptive design. They do not run from change. They become the change, sculpting their bodies to fit the world around them. This ability, known as morphological plasticity, may be the most silent yet most eloquent proof of their intelligence. Every shape in the plant kingdom tells a story of adjustment. Leaves grow broader in the shade, narrower in the sun. Roots twist around obstacles or dive deeper through cracks in the earth. A tree battered by wind becomes sculpted into a curve of endurance, its trunk thickened on the side of the prevailing gusts. Each modification is a calculation, an optimization for balance, energy, and survival. It's not chaos, it's design through patience. Scientists have found that plants monitor dozens of physical and environmental cues at once to regulate their form. Light intensity, humidity, carbon dioxide concentration, even the pressure of nearby leaves, all feed into the same network of decisions. When light is scarce, hormones called auxins accumulate on the shaded side of stems, elongating those cells until the plant bends toward brightness. When space becomes limited, branches alter their growth angles to reduce overlap, creating the beautiful fractal symmetry we call a canopy. These are not random reactions. They are expressions of geometry guided by purpose. The most striking example of this adaptability may be found in climbing plants. A vine in search of support does not move blindly. It performs a slow, graceful spiral known as circumnutation, sweeping the air until it finds something to grasp. When its tendrils encounter a solid surface, tiny pressure sensors in their cells trigger a cascade of hormonal changes. Within hours, the tendril coils tightly, anchoring the plant in place. If the surface proves too smooth or unstable, it releases and tries again. This process, trial, feedback, and adjustment, mirrors the core of problem-solving behavior. It's a form of physical learning played out in green motion. But perhaps the most fascinating example of morphological intelligence comes from a rare South American vine called Botanical trifoliolata. Unlike most plants, Botula can mimic the leaves of other species growing nearby. Its own leaves change in size, shape, and even color to resemble its host. If the vine climbs onto a holly with sharp, serrated leaves, its new growth produces leaves with the same serrations. If it moves to a smooth-leafed plant, it shifts again, creating gentle ovals instead. This is not mere coincidence. It is a deliberate adjustment based on environmental perception. The mechanism behind this mimicry remains one of botany's great mysteries. Some scientists propose that Botula detects subtle differences in light patterns reflected off the host's leaves, a kind of visual sensing without eyes. Others suggest that airborne chemical cues or microbial exchanges on the leaf surface transmit information about the host's identity. Whatever the process, the outcome is astonishing. Botula achieves camouflage, not by hiding, but by transforming, a botanical chameleon. By blending in, it may avoid herbivores that rely on sight to feed. This implies more than adaptation. It implies awareness of context. Morphological plasticity isn't limited to vines. Every plant, in its own quiet way, carries this capacity for reinvention. When wind increases, stems grow thicker. When soil becomes compacted, roots alter direction to find softer ground. Even at the microscopic level, leaf pores adjust their size based on air quality and temperature. Each response is targeted, precise, and proportional, as if the plant were constantly measuring the cost of every move. The concept of form as intelligence extends to entire ecosystems. Consider the structure of a rainforest. Trees competing for light stretch higher, while undergrowth spreads wide to capture what filters through. In deserts, plants shrink their leaves into spines to conserve water and reduce heat absorption. In wetlands, roots develop hollow channels to carry oxygen from the surface into the flooded soil. Every shape, every angle, every pattern of growth is an answer to a question posed by the environment. Through geometry, the plant speaks the language of adaptation. And yet, this constant transformation doesn't erase identity. It deepens it. A maple in the city and a maple in the mountains share the same genome, but their forms are different, molded by wind, pollution, and light. They are both uniquely themselves and uniquely their surroundings. This duality, self and environment intertwined, is what defines the living intelligence of form. In many ways, this is evolution happening in real time. Traditional evolution operates through generations. Morphology evolves within a single lifetime. A plant doesn't wait for its descendants to adapt. It adapts now within its own structure. It changes as it grows, rewriting its architecture as new challenges emerge. And because each adjustment leaves a trace in its tissue, the plant's body becomes a biography, a visible record of all it has experienced. Look closely at the trunk of an old oak, and you'll see this story written in curves and knots. Every bend marks a storm endured. Every scar records a broken branch healed over decades. The tree is both memory and motion, shaped by time into wisdom. Perhaps this is the deepest kind of intelligence nature offers. Not the ability to think abstractly, but to embody knowledge, to let experience reshape you, to learn by becoming. Plants do this with every breath, every photon of light, every drop of rain that passes through their veins. They are living geometry, systems of knowledge expressed in structure, each curve a quiet equation for survival. And in their transformations, we glimpse a truth that applies far beyond biology. To adapt is not to lose yourself. It is to find a new way to exist. The vine that bends, the tree that twists, the flower that folds to shade, all are solving the same timeless riddle of life. How to stay alive in a world that never stops changing. So when you next see a leaf shifting in the wind, imagine it as more than motion. It is thought made visible, a gesture of awareness shaped by the rhythm of the world. If a plant's body can change shape, then it can also map its world, building an inner representation of space, even without eyes or movement. This concept, once considered impossible, now stands as one of the most fascinating frontiers of modern botany. It suggests that plants possess not only memory and learning, but also a primitive kind of spatial awareness. Consider the journey of a climbing plant. A pea vine, for instance, sends out slender tendrils that explore the air around it, moving in gentle spirals. This motion is not random. When the tendril encounters a nearby object, a stick, a wire, another stem, it slows, adjusts, and then begins to coil with precision. If the support is removed, the plant reorients, searching again until contact is made. It doesn't move blindly. It moves intelligently, as if keeping a mental map of the space it inhabits. Time-lapse photography reveals just how deliberate this process is. Vines adjust their speed and direction based on distance, shape, and even the flexibility of nearby structures. Some experiments have shown that climbing plants anticipate contact before it happens, slowing their rotation as they near a target. When researchers moved the support just as the tendrils approached, the vines shifted their trajectories toward the new location, as though they had updated an internal model of the world. This behavior mirrors what neuroscientists call sensoromotor prediction, the ability to forecast outcomes based on sensory feedback. But how could a plant, lacking eyes or neurons, achieve this? The answer may lie in the extraordinary sensitivity of its tissues. Every part of a plant is a sensory surface. Cells in the stem detect changes in light intensity, mechanical tension, and air humidity. Tendrils, in particular, contain specialized mechanoreceptors that convert touch into electrical and chemical signals. These signals ripple through the plant's vascular system like a pulse, guiding movement. It's a biological form of computation, a flow of information that translates contact into motion. The same phenomenon occurs underground. Roots navigate a labyrinth of soil particles, stones, and voids, avoiding obstacles while seeking water and nutrients. Each root tip functions like a sensory organ, detecting gravity, moisture gradients, and chemical concentrations. When faced with a blocked path, roots don't stop. They bend, reroute, and continue forward. They explore multiple routes simultaneously, coordinating their efforts through internal electrical waves and hormone exchanges. Charles Darwin himself once speculated that the root tip might act as a brain for the plant, a control center that perceives and directs growth. More than a century later, modern science is beginning to confirm just how prescient that idea was. Within the growing zone of a root lies a region known as the transition zone. Here, electrical activity spikes, calcium ions surge, and information from multiple sensory inputs converges. When this area is experimentally damaged, the plant's ability to orient itself is disrupted. It can no longer distinguish up from down, wet from dry. In effect, it loses its sense of direction. This strongly suggests that plants process spatial data in a localized, integrative way, the botanical equivalent of a command center. Roots, then, are explorers and cartographers. They create internal representations of their surroundings based on feedback, learning the contours of soil texture, mapping nutrient pockets, and remembering past obstacles. When scientists grow roots in artificial mazes, they find the pathways are not random. The roots tend to favor routes that previously led to nutrients, avoiding dead ends. It's as if the plant remembers where success was found. Using that knowledge to guide future growth, this behavior closely mirrors foraging strategies seen in animals. But the story grows deeper. Some experiments have shown that when multiple roots from the same plant are divided into separate environments, they communicate information about conditions to one another. A root encountering dryness will trigger chemical responses in its siblings growing elsewhere, prompting the entire plant to conserve water. This suggests that each root's local map contributes to a shared internal model, a distributed sense of space spanning the whole organism. Above ground, plants perform similar feats with light. Leaves and stems adjust their orientation not only to the brightness of the sun, but to the reflection of nearby surfaces. They detect changes in the color spectrum that signal the presence of other plants. By measuring these differences, a plant can infer whether it's in open space or crowded shade, whether to grow taller or spread wider. This ability, known as shade avoidance syndrome, is effectively a kind of environmental reasoning. The plant interprets the geometry of light and responds strategically. Taken together, these behaviors demonstrate that plants construct complex models of their environment, not as conscious imagery, but as biochemical patterns. Their bodies store gradients of information: moisture here, light there, obstacle ahead. Each gradient acts like a coordinate in an invisible map that guides growth. This is not metaphorical, it's measurable. Mathematical models of root systems show decision patterns identical to those of simulated learning agents. Algorithms designed to explore efficiently, based on feedback and memory. What we begin to see is a new definition of intelligence, one not confined to brains or eyes, but expressed through embodied cognition. The idea that thought can arise from interaction between body and world. A plant's mind is not in its head because it has none. It is everywhere, in every tendril, every root tip, every shifting leaf. Each movement is an act of understanding, a response shaped by stored experience and constant perception. Perhaps this is why watching plants in time-lapse feels oddly human. They hesitate, adjust, reach, and retry. They act as if aware of boundaries, even though they sense them differently. Their behavior is not random, not automatic, but informed, shaped by feedback, guided by unseen awareness. In this quiet choreography, we glimpse a logic older than thought itself, the logic of growth as knowledge. And so, in every inch of root and curve of vine, the plant reveals its secret map, a living blueprint drawn not on paper, but in motion. It does not see the world, it becomes it. Among the many ways plants perceive their world, one of the most mysterious is their ability to see without eyes. They cannot form images as animals do, yet they react to patterns of light, shadow, and even color with an accuracy that borders on vision. This phenomenon is called photoreception, and it may be one of the most ancient forms of perception on Earth. It is through this silent sensitivity that plants navigate the unseen architecture of their environment, reading light as we read meaning. Take, for instance, phototropism, the tendency of plants to grow toward light. This is one of the most familiar examples of photoreception, but beneath its simplicity lies deep coordination. When light shines unevenly across a stem, the shaded side accumulates more auxin, a hormone that promotes cell elongation. Those cells grow faster, causing the stem to bend toward the source of light. The result appears mechanical, but the process involves integration of multiple signals: intensity, direction, duration, and spectral quality. The plant isn't merely chasing brightness, it's computing an optimal path to energy. But photoreception extends far beyond simple movement. Plants can distinguish between different colors of light and use this information to make decisions. Blue light, sensed by cryptochromes, regulates circadian rhythms and leaf expansion. Red and far red light, detected by phytochromes, governs germination, flowering, and shade avoidance. The ratio between red and far red light tells a plant whether it's in open sun or beneath another's shadow. When surrounded by taller neighbors, the balance shifts toward far red wavelengths, signaling the plant to grow upward before light becomes scarce. This subtle, spectral reading acts like environmental radar, a non-visual awareness of spatial competition. What's even more astonishing is that some plants can respond to the direction and quality of light reflected off nearby surfaces. They recognize whether the light bouncing toward them is from another plant, the ground, or the sky. In doing so, they build a low-resolution map of their surroundings. Not an image, but a pattern of light geometry. This spatial awareness allows them to avoid overcrowding and to maximize photosynthetic efficiency. The sensitivity to light also plays a key role in communication. Many plants release volatile chemicals in response to damage only during daylight hours, when light cues activate the proper genes. Others alter the color of their flowers in real time, using shifts in pigment to signal pollinators. In some tropical orchids, petals subtly change hue over the course of a day, guiding specific insects to visit at the right moment. It is a kind of visual dialogue written in wavelengths, language encoded in color. Others suggest that airborne chemical signals carry spatial information the vine can interpret. Whichever explanation proves true, the result remains almost unbelievable. A plant capable of perceiving its neighbor's visual identity and replicating it in its own form. Photoreception also governs a plant's relationship with time. Through light-sensitive proteins, plants keep track of day length, a process known as photoperiodism. When nights become longer or shorter, these proteins switch genes on or off, telling the plant when to flower or when to rest. This internal calendar ensures that blooming coincides with pollinator activity and that seeds ripen under favorable conditions. Some species can even adapt their circadian rhythm when transplanted across latitudes, recalibrating to new cycles of light and dark within a few days. It is, in essence, biological timekeeping written in photons. Plants not only detect light, they feel it. Infrared radiation warms their tissues, triggering thermal responses that regulate metabolism. Ultraviolet light activates protective pigments that act as sunscreens. Each wavelength carries meaning, and plants decode it instinctively. To them, light is not just illumination, it's information. They sense its direction, intensity, color, and rhythm. Each cue a message about the world they inhabit. For all their brilliance with light, plants are not limited to seeing. They remember it too. Their relationship with light is both physical and temporal, guided by rhythms as ancient as life itself. This rhythm is called the circadian clock, a self-sustaining internal system that allows every plant to measure the passing of time, even in complete darkness. Experiments have shown this extraordinary precision. In one study, scientists placed plants in constant darkness for days. Despite the absence of any external light cue, their leaves continued to rise and fall in a perfect 24-hour rhythm. The movement did not depend on sunlight. It was driven by an internal clock. Even when environmental conditions were changed, the rhythm persisted, adjusting gradually but never losing its fundamental cycle. It is one of the purest examples of self-regulation in the natural world. Inside every plant cell, genes linked to the circadian system switch on and off in repeating waves. These molecular oscillations control photosynthesis, water balance, and hormone production. In effect, the plant's entire metabolism moves to a beat, one tuned to the rotation of Earth itself. And while we often think of intelligence as a matter of thought, Perhaps it also exists in the ability to keep time, because time, after all, is what gives structure to memory and anticipation. This biological clock is not rigid, it is dynamic and adaptive. When a plant is moved across latitudes, say from the tropics to a northern climate, its circadian rhythm slowly recalibrates to the new daylight pattern. It learns the new rhythm of sunrise and sunset, syncing itself with its surroundings. This ability to entrain, to adjust its internal cycles to external cues, reveals a subtle form of learning at the cellular level. It shows that life is not passively controlled by environment, but in constant conversation with it. Through this clock, plants prepare for daily challenges before they happen. Guard cells, the microscopic gateways on leaves, open just before dawn, ready to absorb carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. At dusk, they close to conserve water. Flowering species release scent at the exact hour when their pollinators are most active. Some desert plants even preempt the morning heat, reducing transpiration rates before temperatures rise. These aren't reactions. They're predictions based on remembered rhythm. At a deeper level, the circadian system coordinates entire ecosystems. Trees in a forest synchronize their seasonal transitions, shedding leaves together in autumn, blooming together in spring. Even microorganisms in the soil respond to these cycles, timing their growth to match the carbon flow from roots. It's as if the planet breathes through the combined heartbeat of its green inhabitants. And the clock doesn't stop with the sun. It can also track longer periods, seasonal changes, lunar cycles, even the approach of storms. Studies have shown that some coastal plants open and close their flowers in rhythm with tides, even when moved far inland. They remember the pull of the moon. In alpine species, growth pulses correspond with predictable weather shifts, as though the plants keep calendars older than our own. Every oscillation, from the flicker of stomata to the swell of sap, is part of a symphony of timing that sustains life across scales. At the molecular level, this rhythm is governed by feedback loops among key genes. Some activate others at dawn, others suppress them at night. This push and pull creates oscillations in protein concentrations that ripple through every part of the plant. It's remarkably similar to the mechanisms found in animals, including humans. Our sleep cycles, metabolism, and hormone levels follow the same basic architecture. Different species, same principle. The rhythm of adaptation written into DNA. And perhaps when we rise each morning to sunlight filtering through leaves, we are not just witnessing the beginning of another day. We are participating in the same ancient rhythm that guides them, a shared heartbeat between us and the green world. Because in every breath of air, in every turn of light, we are all keeping time together. If the circadian clock gives plants rhythm, then chemistry gives them language. For within every forest, meadow, and field, there exists an invisible conversation, a dialogue carried not by words or sound, but by molecules drifting through air and soil. It is a language of scent, of signal, of reaction. And in this quiet communication, plants reveal yet another dimension of their intelligence, the ability to share information and influence one another across distance. When a caterpillar bites into a leaf, the plant doesn't just repair itself, it sends a warning. Within minutes, it releases volatile organic compounds, tiny chemical messengers that drift through the air. Neighboring plants, upon sensing these signals, activate their own defense genes before the threat even reaches them. It's a kind of botanical early warning system, a molecular broadcast that keeps entire communities alert. To humans, it is invisible. To the plants, it is language. These compounds vary depending on the attacker. A chewing insect triggers one set of molecules, a fungal infection another. Each chemical blend carries specific meaning: danger from above, danger from below. Prepare your defenses. It's communication coded in scent. a vocabulary shaped by evolution. In fact, scientists can now identify these distinct phrases by analyzing the molecular signatures of plant emissions. The more we decode them, the clearer it becomes that plants use an astonishingly nuanced grammar to express their internal state. Some of these messages go even further. A damaged leaf may send out compounds that attract the predator of the insect attacking it. For example, when corn plants are chewed by caterpillars, they release chemicals that draw parasitic wasps, natural enemies of the caterpillars. In effect, the plant calls for help. This is not random chemistry. It is strategic coordination between species, a cooperative intelligence that crosses genetic boundaries. But chemical communication doesn't only warn of harm. It can also signal peace, growth, and opportunity. Roots release exudates, complex blends of sugars, amino acids, and organic acids that attract beneficial microbes. These microbes, in turn, help plants absorb nutrients or fend off pathogens. Through this biochemical exchange, the soil becomes a living network of mutual support. Each molecule functions like a word in a collective conversation, describing needs, offering assistance, negotiating balance. Some plants even use chemicals to shape the behavior of their neighbors. Black walnut trees, for example, release juglone, a compound that inhibits the growth of nearby plants. It's a form of chemical competition known as allelopathy. By altering the soil chemistry, the walnut ensures it won't be crowded. Other species, like desert sage, use similar tactics, releasing inhibitory volatiles to claim scarce resources. It's the plant equivalent of territorial strategy, quiet but decisive. And yet, this competition is balanced by cooperation. Leguminous plants, such as peas and beans, release signals that attract nitrogen-fixing bacteria. These microbes live in root nodules, converting atmospheric nitrogen into forms the plant can use. The bacteria benefit too, gaining carbohydrates from their host. It's a perfect chemical dialogue, one that sustains entire ecosystems. Without it, the very balance of nitrogen on Earth would collapse. At a larger scale, these interactions blur the boundaries between individuals. A forest, viewed chemically, is not a collection of separate organisms, but a shared metabolic community. Carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus flow between species through soil and air, carrying traces of information as they move. When one plant is injured, others feel it. When one thrives, others adjust accordingly. This distributed awareness resembles the feedback systems of neural networks. Slow, molecular, but no less intricate. Even more astonishing are plants that eavesdrop on the conversations of others. Experiments have shown that some species can detect volatiles released by unrelated plants and respond adaptively. When wild tobacco grows near sagebrush, it begins producing extra defensive compounds after sensing the sage's alarm chemicals, even before any damage occurs. It's as if the tobacco learned another species' language, translating chemical signals into action. This interspecific communication suggests a shared biochemical syntax, a common grammar that transcends evolutionary distance. In other cases, plants form symbiotic partnerships with insects using chemical cues as negotiation tools. Acacia trees, for example, emit nectar droplets from specialized glands to attract protective ants. The ants defend the tree from herbivores and even prune away competing vegetation. When danger passes, the tree reduces nectar production, signaling that payment is no longer due. It's a delicate economy of trust, regulated entirely through molecules. The sophistication of this chemical intelligence becomes clearer when we study how plants modify their messages based on context. A single species can produce entirely different volatile blends depending on light, humidity, and the presence of particular neighbors. The same signal molecule might mean help in one context and warning in another. It's not just chemical reaction, it's interpretation. Plants are not merely broadcasting data, they are encoding meaning. Some researchers believe that this chemical literacy evolved from ancient microbial communication. Before plants ever colonized land, single-celled algae and bacteria were already exchanging molecular signals to coordinate growth. Over millions of years, those primitive dialogues expanded in complexity, eventually giving rise to the dense, multilingual chemistry of terrestrial ecosystems. In a sense, every leaf and root today is still speaking that primordial language, the language of connection. And perhaps, if we could translate it, we would hear the world itself in conversation. A cedar, whispering resilience to its kin, a patch of grass murmuring to recover after rain, 1,000 invisible words drifting in the breeze between soil and sky. We often think intelligence requires sound, syntax, or consciousness, but the truth may be far simpler and more profound. To communicate, one need only respond to another, and to respond with purpose, one must first understand. Plants do both. They listen, they speak, they adapt their tone to circumstance. Each chemical signal is a sentence written in air and earth, each response a thoughtful reply in the oldest language on the planet, the language of life itself. Good night, and see you in the next video.